Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Grue Room. And for the Grue Room today, we've got a very great guest, and his name Thomas Dekker. And Thomas has been involved in the business for so long. He's an actor, director, producer, writer, and he does music. Has a brand new album out called Tasma, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him about his brand new album, his new single, and his life in the music world. And we will also talk about some of his films. He's done numerous films, so can't really get into all of them. But since I'm mainly a horror site, I would love to talk to him about his horror movies. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I am Rocco Cross. I am the host of Stutters. I am the host of the Grue Room, and my interview with Thomas Dekker is coming up next. Okay, welcome to Grue, and thank you so much for taking time out of your night and coming on the show.
Of course, anytime.
Thanks. All right, buddy. Thank you. So like the first thing I wanted to ask you, like, I see you've been involved with making songs for a while now. What 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 drew you to wanting to do songs, wanting to make songs?
Oh man, music and acting have both been in my life for pretty much the same amount of time, which is since like 5 years old. My parents were in music. My father was an opera singer, and my mother's a pianist, concert pianist. So I was
Wow.
kind of put on piano at 6 and grew to love it as I got older. And yeah, there was an inordinate amount of classical in my upbringing. Like it was a lot of classical in the house and a lot of kind of music education, which was great. And very grateful to my parents for that. And then when I kind of hit puberty and started my whole private journey of music discovery, I sort of ended up, I think through predominantly film soundtracks, I really got into electronica and industrial. And so then I kind of really got into the crossover of classical and electronic. And there was a lot of great people in the late 90s and early 2000s, I think, who were really doing that really well. And so I just got obsessed with all of those. And I think that really shaped the kind of music I wanted to make. And I started recording my own stuff at like 15, 16.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I think I was 21 when I put out the album that was sort of the collection of songs that I liked best from the teen years. And then I took about 10 years off as a solo artist. I worked in a kind of like art collective for a minute, which was great. But yeah, I didn't release a solo album under my name from 2008 to 2018. So, and now of course there's been another one since the 2018 one. So yeah,
Wow,
that was a very long-winded answer to your question.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Okay. And like, who did you look up to music artists?
Oh my God. Like always kind of.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people if you work in any kind of creative field, there's always certain ones who are doing something that you just, I don't know, it opens doors for you creatively. And so for me, it was, Bjork was always a really important influence on me. I think just because she's always been a very pioneering artist, and she's always kind of doing something different and new and a bit challenging. And yeah, so I loved her. I love Bowie, obviously. I'm really influenced by a lot of 80s musicians, ranging from sort of 80s goth to 80s synth pop to 80s soundtrack to, so a lot of those bands. And then bands like Suicide are a really big influence. And I love Peaches, the musician Peaches.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. I don't know, I have weird tastes, but usually I'd say the through line is some sort of, usually with a bit of a dark edge and a good driving rhythm. I mean, and I think over the last few years, which is odd, this album is actually less kind of propulsive dance energy than my previous or my next. But over the last few years, electronic body music, I like stuff that kind of makes you move lately.
Nice.
It's been working for me.
Nice. And what was like the first songs you ever wrote?
Oh my God. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. Fuck. I don't know if you can swear on this.
Yeah,
I should have asked. Okay. I just remember it was a lot of early, like I was recording I had this little thing that was cool. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was a thing I had in my early teens where you could record, one track and then you could record another thing and it kind of laid it over it. And so I started really working in just vocals and just lyrics and just melodies and just harmonies and kind of figuring all that out. And then it was just, I remember I got a Mac Tower when I was 14.
Okay.
I saved up some acting money to let my parents buy this, let me have this thing. And it had a kind of complex, I don't know what that means, but it had a good like GarageBand system.
All right.
And
okay.
that was actually where I first started kind of building and sort of understanding how, to self-produce and all of that. So as far as the first songs, I don't know. I know there's this song on the first album I put out in 2008, which, disclaimer, I think there are great things about things that you put out at all different times in your life. There are things about that album that it's a very, I respect that it's so kind of like insane. I mean, it's a really odd record.
Okay.
Because I think I was just so unfiltered at that time. It was like teenage me just going crazy, trying weird things with my voice. And it was a very experimental discovery record, which is kind of cool to have as a document, but I don't think it's necessarily like an outstanding album on its own terms. But I think there's this track Melt Away that is the second track on that album. And that I remember was like one of the very first songs I saw all the way through to completion. And it was kind of a challenging thing because I wanted it to start as a really slow ballad and then by the end be like full kind of house track.
Nice.
So that was an early one. I don't know.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
I was very young.
Well, I remember that I think it was like a couple years ago you put out the album Into the Night.
Yes.
And I listened to it when it was out and it was really good, like how you talk about the vibe, 80s vibe.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely had that to it. Like it was like a lost boys type vibe.
Speaking my language.
So tell me about like what you were going through to make that album. Like I mean definitely 80s heavy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there'd been a decade between and like I was just saying that first record that had been a decade earlier really didn't, it sort of purposefully didn't settle on a genre. It didn't settle on a vibe or a sound. It was really eclectic and all over the place. And after such a long absence of nothing solo, I wanted to come back with something very, homogenous, very kind of one vibe and one sound. And it was also a personally important record for me because I had just gotten sober and it was kind of it was really a whole, it was a whole new experience of experiencing music and experiencing everything kind of anew. And so it wasn't even really like a decision I remember consciously making. It was just at that time in particular, like all I was listening to was John Carpenter soundtracks and Goblin and like Susie and the Banshees and New Order, and all these musicians had really kind of, considering I'd been through a lot of emotional kind of personal shit around that time, the sound of that era, and particularly of the alternative artists of that era, really had been there for me, and kind of been my support system, particularly through the night. And so this album just kind of came together and it happened quite fast, like the structure of it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and it was also just a great excuse to make an electronic record, but to be working with all like vintage synths and old shit. It was just really fun to work on like creating a sound that remained for the whole album. So yeah, that's another one that I just actually listened to some of it not too long ago, and it's another one that feels very like wild, like it's not really restrained. It's just kind of like, and I think there was a lot of stuff coming out of me. But thanks for listening to that album.
Yeah, definitely. And I I read your current album, your new album,
Mhm.
Tasman,
Mhm.
is that how you say it,
Yeah,
right?
Tasma.
Okay.
Yeah.
uh I read like you said this is like your most personal one yet.
Yeah.
And what in inspired you to make the album, and how did you wind up doing it?
Well, um, much like Into the Night, all my music had always felt more kind of story based, more kind of fantasy based, kind of
Okay.
more in the vein of how I write scripts or work in film is kind of, okay, I want to create a mood and a world, and I want to tell a story that's not mine. And after doing that for so long, um, I wanted to make an album that was not singer songwritery in that sense, where I was really going to sit down and just plain English verbatim tell you my
Mhm.
my inner situation. I was still going to do it in my own sort of removed abstract way, but it was really, I just kind of was like, okay, even if maybe it's in my own poetic terms that aren't crystal clear to everyone, to me it was really about exploring a lot of darkness in my past, a lot of,
Okay.
and particularly I will say, um, I just come out before I released Into the Dark, like I mean Into the Night, very closely to that time.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and I think it was about a year or less, 6 months to a year before that album that I came out. And so while I was sort of free, I think there's one song in that album called Boys and Eyeliner, but this was the album where I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about my relationships with men,
Yeah.
negative, positive, dangerous, wonderful, and to kind of look at that space. And so yeah, I guess that's what I mean by personal. It's all the songs have a kind of personal story behind them.
Oh
um
wow.
yeah, yeah. I don't know.
Wow, okay. And like how do you wind up getting into like a mind frame to write lyrics for these songs?
The lyrics, I always find lyrics are, particularly on this album, were a challenge,
Okay.
because it was less about looking for all the words to get in there. I was really trying to be as kind of tight as possible to just only say exactly what needed. And kind of the whole album was like that. The production, it's a lot more contained. It's a lot
Okay.
less sort of throwing paint at the wall kind of thing, which I love, but I was, I guess, trying to do something a little more reserved this time. So finding the lyrics was tough, mainly because I just didn't want there to be a wrong one. I didn't want
Yeah.
there to be, it had to be right, every step. And so, but lyrics are usually kind of, as far as the writing process, or it's kind of nearer the end for me. It really starts with feeling and what I'm going to be singing about. And then the
Okay.
music kind of grows out of that. And the melody is kind of grown with the music. And then once I have a picture of the track, then I kind of go in and lyrically, I've always worked like that. I've never really been a musician who, like writes a poem or writes lyrics and then
Mhm.
kind of builds them into a song. I'd like to actually challenge myself and try and work that way a little bit more, maybe on the next one. But
Okay.
but yeah, the lyrics are always tricky. I don't know.
And
It's difficult. I think if anybody who works in music and works in something that is like narrative storytelling, I
mhm.
think that for me at least, most of the time, everything I'm trying to get across to you is in the music. So then when I have to then kind of go, okay, and now here's the narrative word structure that has to be a part of it. It's like a different part of the brain kind of interacting with the, I don't know. This all sounds very, very pretentious, but I'm just trying to be
honest. And you have a new single out for your album, right?
Yeah, there was a Poolside is the track, I think. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, Poolside seemed to be you know, I kind of dropped this album out of nowhere. Like I should say, by the way, this is the longest I've worked on a record ever. I started, and granted, it wasn't like I was sat in front of, you know, the system working on it constantly. I would walk away from it for long periods, but I started it in like early mid 2019.
Oh wow, really?
And yeah. And so it was a very long, slow, meticulous, because I just released an album too. I felt no sort of need to like put anything out. It was just that I couldn't stop recording. I was just recording and writing. And I think after doing Into the Night, the floodgates had kind of opened and there was just a lot of material coming out. So I kind of just kept recording without the intention of releasing any of it. And out of that, certain songs came about where I was like, oh, these all fit and these go with what I want to do here. But it's been a really long period. And so then I just, in typical B fashion, I was like, okay, now it's done. And now I have to put it out, because if I don't put it out, I'll just keep working on this thing and it'll never get finished. So I kind of put it out quickly. And I don't know, yeah, Poolside seemed to me to be the song to focus on, because it is the most about what I was just speaking about, kind of being able to talk about my past experiences in that part of myself. And it's also the only track on the album that I have a guest musician. So that was really nice. It's a very lonely record. The whole thing was made just by me on my own, but the guitar on that track is by a really, really talented friend and musician named Trevor Bloomis.
Nice.
Yeah, and he did just such a great job. So
oh wow,
shout
out. I mean, you can't really tell because but like your album is the background.
I can't see it. I can't see it.
I mean, my body's taking up most of the words, but
I can see the dog over your shoulder though.
Okay.
Just a good sentence.
And I also see you're in like a new television show, or I don't know if it's out yet. Swim with the Sharks.
Yes, finally. So yeah, I'm in this weird moment where I'm not really permitted to talk about much because they're about to do an announcement. There's about to be. But yeah, I will say yes. I am a lead in this show called Swimming with Sharks, with like all these amazing people as Diane Krueger and Kiernan Shipka and Donald Sutherland and Finn Jones, and a really, really great group. And Kathleen Robertson wrote it and created it, and she's from Gregoraki land, as am I, and so that was kind of a nice connector. And Tucker Gates directed it, who I really love.
Wow, yeah.
Bates Motel and all of that. And so we shot that, and due to COVID and the whole world falling apart, it's been a bit delayed, but it is coming, and soon you'll know where. And I'm very excited about it.
Oh, sweet, nice. And since you're a big horror fan, and my show has so much to do with horror movies I'm gonna to ask you about your horror past for the next somewhat questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So, was it hard to play David in the fear clinic? Because
Fear Clinic,
you have to. Your character is basically in a wheelchair. So was it hard to play someone like that, like a role like that?
I would say it wasn't hard, but it was challenging, which is exciting to me. And I was very good friends with the director of that film, and who we sadly lost this year, a few months ago. And it was our third film together, I think. And yeah, it was kind of one of those things where he called me and was like, I got another movie happening. Do you want to come do it? And I was like, sure. But he did say you have to be in a wheelchair and you have to you can't do anything for the first half of the movie. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But it turns out in the story, I haven't seen it in a number of years, but there are moments where he did want me to react to things but not react to things, and so it was exciting. And then he slowly kind of comes to consciousness as the movie goes, so yeah, challenging in a good way.
Okay. And of course I have to ask, like, how was it like being on set working with Freddy Krueger himself?
Oh my God.
Robert Englund.
Well, I mean, considering I'd done Nightmare on Elm Street with not Robert Englund,
Robert Englund.
And what was funny was at the time that the one I did came out, Robert Englund had done a panel at some con where he was asked about it, and a friend of mine had shown it to me at the time where I don't know why, complimented me like crazy. So I was like, oh, good. He doesn't hate me for doing this. That's good. And so then when I knew I was going to work with him, I was like, okay, this will be great. And I mean, I have to say, I don't think I've worked with a lot of really entertaining people, but nobody captivates like him. In this tiny town that we were shooting in Ohio, there was like a Buffalo Wild Wings was like the place to go, because it was a very small area. And he would just set up shop in there for hours and just sit and just tell stories to anyone, because everyone would recognize him, and I would sit right there and listen too, because I was like, this is fascinating. So it was great. He's like the nicest guy.
Oh wow, okay.
And a really supportive actor too.
Nice. I mean, I've heard so many good things about him. I still haven't met him yet. I still want to meet him at one of these horror conventions, because every time I went to meet him, he was sold out. So
it happens. He's got this great, just he loves life. You can tell he's just excited to be here. I love that about him. I don't know. It's a dying breed.
And there was a television series that I really liked, and for some reason I was not happy that it wasn't renewed for a second season. The Secret Circle.
Oh boy.
I'm probably one of the few ones that watched it, right?
You'd be surprised. I think over the years it's garnered a little bit of a following. But yes, at the time, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we did well or not. It was so long ago.
I really, really liked that series a lot. I mean, I watched it when it was first out, and I still watch it yet. And it was just like a great series about witchcraft and stuff. And I can't think of the actor's name. He was in that Kaboom, that movie.
Yeah. Chris Zilka.
Yes. He was back, and I mean, you and him were back working together again. And so how was it like being on that show?
Oh my God. Well, the good news is we're all still very good friends. We're also very, very close. I actually just saw Shelley Hennig like 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
It was a great time. I was 23, we were in Vancouver, and we were all babies, and I think we really bonded with each other. I mean, we really, and Britt Robertson and I had done a movie together before that. I think it was like one of her very first movies. Okay. And like you just said, I'd worked with Chris, and he actually joined the show like later. He joined the show like 5 or 6 episodes in, and I remember being on set, and they were like, there's a few guys, and I didn't know who any of the other ones were, but I knew him, and I was like, oh fuck, I really hope he gets it. So I have more friends. Yeah, it was a great time. It was a long, cold year in Vancouver, a lot of late night woods, wet, spell casting. But and it was, it was Kevin Williamson. So I was just stoked. I was such a Scream fanatic as a child that I was just excited to do anything with him.
Awesome. And I read like you used to have a crush on Species.
Oh yeah.
Tasha
Henstridge.
So I mean, and someone you had a crush on, you're actually working with her now.
Well, let me tell you. So this is I I had been such, fan as beyond, I don't know what. I was just obsessed with her as a kid. And I would do these drawings because when I was a kid, I had no friends and I was super lonely. And so my world was like music and drawing. And I would just draw her all the time and do these portraits of her. And when I got Secret Circle and I first got to Vancouver, this is a true story. After 2 days of being there, my mom called me and she was like, "Are you freaking out?" And I was like, "About what?" And she's like, "Natasha Henstridge is on your show." And I was like, "No, she's not. No, she's not. I can't handle that." And I was like, we had to go to a cast dinner the next night. And I'd like given myself the talk beforehand. I was like, "Don't say anything. Don't freak her out. Don't tell her you used to draw pictures that like I just told you." I was like, she'll get weird. Anyway, of course I told all of it to her in like the first 30 seconds because I just completely fanboyed out and I couldn't control myself. And of course she was the kindest person in the moment, didn't make me feel awkward at all. And we've remained really good friends. We're really good friends. So that's another one. That show probably brought me some of the longest lasting friendships when I think about it. And that is a thrill. I'll be honest. Like sometimes I forget, but I'm like, yeah, I'm friends with like in my childhood, like, oh my God, like,
right.
Yeah. So it's wild.
That is so awesome.
She's the best.
Yeah, she seems like really awesome. I mean, Species and this show, and just seeing her like
Ghost of
on
Mars
interviews.
too.
Yes, the Ghost of Mars.
Underrated in that movie. She's great.
Yeah. And like, how was it like to step into the role of John Connor in the television series? Like, I mean, you have the films, the Terminator films with John Connor, but now there's like a series circled around him, and you're him.
Yeah. And I was 18 when I got it, and it had been a really long process to get it. It was like 9 auditions or something.
Wow.
It was months. And they looked at kind of everybody, and yeah, I was really daunted by it. I very publicly said numerous times when I first heard, "Oh, you're going to be auditioning for this Terminator show," my first thought was, this is going to suck. Because I just thought, how can you do something of that scale and that size on TV, especially at that time? We're talking like 2000, whatever it was. And then I read it, and I was so impressed by the fact that the series was kind of able to really get into all the philosophical quandaries that were sort of presented in Terminator, but you've got 2 hours and a lot of action to get to. So you had, it was there, but it wasn't really fully fleshed out. And it kind of hit me that just within the DNA of the idea of Terminator and Sarah Connor and John Connor and all this, there's so much room for, well, where does the human heart end and the robotic mind begin? And how does a mother-son duo handle this where they know what he's going to be in advance? And, so I think the show did a really good job of like really great action for TV scale.
Right.
And actually like asking some interesting questions. I don't know. I'm very proud of that show, and I had a really great time on that show. And I still miss, that's like the one gig that when I think about like the day-to-day of doing it, that's the one where I was like, oh man, I would love to be doing that again, just because it was really fun. It was really fun.
And I was reading you did a lot of pranks on set, was it, for John Connor? What was the best prank you pulled?
Well, let me clarify. It wasn't like a ton of like, what I think of as like the George Clooney on set pranks. We always hear about these things they were doing, but it was more so just the show was so serious, like it was so serious. And when you're doing that constantly, it gets difficult to kind of stay in such a heavy space. So I would team up with Lena. We just had we love to like scare new directors in rehearsal by doing the scenes just really bizarrely or really like, just kind of baffle them for a minute. And then we really don't worry, we'll do it right on the day. I don't know, just a lot of childish, a lot of voice playing. And I don't know, I was, Yeah, I can't think of anything specific prank that I pulled. Oh, well, I used to just run around if there were scenes where I was running around and if I was gonna like enter the shot,
Uh-huh.
like with my, boxers on stuff, but I would just like have my jeans around my knees and run around like that and just surprise everybody. That was always a good prank. That would get a good 3 a.m. laugh when everybody wanted to crawl in a hole and sleep. I don't know. I was 18. Look, I can't be held responsible.
and, and you were only 6 when you starred in Village of the Damned, which one of my favorite horror films. And when I saw the pictures, I remembered like you as the boy in it, and I was like, oh shit, that's him.
I know. You know what? It's like my biggest badge of honor. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
At 6 years old, it's so funny. I met over the weekend. I met Don Mancini, which was like a huge, oh my god, like,
Yeah, Chucky.
Yeah, he's an idol. He's an icon, and somehow Village of the Damned like came up, and then that was like what we talked about for the majority of the time we were together, because it is, it's a John Carpenter movie. It's a pretty iconic, particularly of that era cast. And I was 6 years old, and I oddly have, I've said this before, but I oddly have like very crystal clear memories of that.
Oh, wow.
Experience. I know, like more so than stuff I did, when I was like 12, 13, 15. I somehow remember really, I think just because it was like my first, big movie, and it was really, and also just, I was obsessed with just watching John Carpenter, like watching this person just kind of be so in casual command of all these people and all that was going on. And even at 6, it just really impressed me. And I said, I kind of knew then, I was like, well, that's what I really want to do. Like, that's what I want to eventually do, which is still true. But yeah, I mean, another great experience, another really great experience.
Well, plus you actually got to work with the late Christopher Reeve. I mean, that's
movie.
huge. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
the last movie before his accident.
Well, yeah, exactly.
He did do other work after that. Yeah, and that was, I remember when it happened, because the accident happened not too long after we'd finished filming the movie, and it was shocking, as everyone remembers. But yeah, he was lovely to me, and everyone was lovely to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that movie is so good. Like I have watched that movie a lot. I mean, with all the kids that are all creepy, including you.
Yeah, I'm the only one with feelings, though. Supposedly,
your character was nicer than the rest of them. The girl was crazy.
Did you ever see this? She ended up doing a great horror movie called Shrooms. Later on,
I heard of that. Yeah,
that? She's great in that, actually.
Okay.
It's actually a fun movie. But anyway, that's like 2009 or something.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely had like a big cast, like with Christopher Reeve, John Carpenter, Kirstie Alley, right? She was
Mark
in
Hamill.
Yeah, Mark Hamill. Yeah.
And Linda Kozlowski was Crocodile Dundee's wife.
Yeah.
She played my mom.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And another film, like you wrote and directed, Jack Comes Home. And what made you want to write this film?
It's $1 million question. This is gonna come down heavy.
Okay.
My father died in 2010, and he'd had a long struggle with Alzheimer's, and and it was I was 22 when he passed away, and it really left me really ruined. I mean, really, really kind of broke me. I had of course, a very close relationship with both my parents my whole life, and I still do with my mom, who is still here. But my dad was was very much a creative rock and an art. He is kind of the artist of the family, and I don't know. We just had a very, very close bond, and so as I kind of came out of the devastation of dealing with the loss of him, I
Mhm.
knew I wanted to write something about a person my age losing a parent, and kind of that weird moment of, you're no longer a child. And in the case of Jack, he's about to have a child, yet he's lost his father. And in the process now is discovering all this from his childhood. And that is also true, which I don't think a lot of people knew, was that at the time of my father's passing, I discovered quite a bit about some childhood abuse that I can, from no one in my family, but from outside of the family. And it was a really devastating situation. And as I usually do, I take things that are really, really tough in my life, and it just automatically turns into something I write, turns into something creative, whether it be music or film or whatever. It's, I think, how I kind of process things and how I deal with things, is to kind of shape them into a kind of abstract version of it. And so Jack Goes Home in many ways was kind of my way of exercising all of that in a hopefully non-dreary, non-just depressing way. I wanted to make something that was a little bit mind-bendy and a little bit, and super genre in many ways. Yeah, it was a wild time making it. It was a very fast shoot. We were on a tight budget.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, on that film, you have Culkin, Rory
Yeah.
Culkin, and the iconic Lynn Shay.
Shay, I know.
I mean, she is amazing.
Well, the thing about Lynn was I had loved Lynn for years and years and years. And it's interesting with her, it's like, depends on what circle you go to. She's either the comedy queen or the horror queen. And it kind of depends who you ask. And I just always thought she was such a tremendous actor, like just straight up, forget the genre. She's just got so many levels to her. And originally I don't know, there was kind of a different vision of the mother. And then when Lynn kind of came into the fold, I was like, wait a minute, this could be really, really fun to play with. So it was a thrill to get her, and it was a really a thrill to get Rory too, who I'd never met. I just thought he was such a striking actor, and and he's such a great guy, and he's one of the most talented people I've been around. I mean, to watch him, and when we shot that, it was a really amazing process to watch how he kind of would disappear into the character. And of course Britt Robertson, my old pal Britt Robertson, and Natasha Lyonne, and it was it was very fortunate. I got a really good little group together.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And, and what scenes and what kills did you like most from both of the Laid to Rest films?
Oh man,
Chrome Skull.
Oh my god, I haven't seen those movies in so long. I know, I remember there's a good one. There's a good death with Jonathan Sheck in the first one, where I think he's like leaning through a car window and a knife comes like through his face, and then it he pulls the half of his head off or something. I don't know. Crazy, disturbing shit. But by the way, because I don't know if you know this, or I'm sure some people do, but the director of those movies and Fear Clinic, who was my friend, he'd done all the special effects makeup on Terminator. It was his company. And so that was how we knew each other, was he'd been on set the whole time of Sarah Connor. And I was really fascinated by the makeup effects and how it all worked. And so I would go to the shop and, watch all this stuff get made and built. And it was the same for Laid to Rest. I was kind of there because that was just all in like his dime. And, it was this tiny little movie but it was fun. I used to kind of help out in the shop. There's a Sarah Connor episode where there's a bunch of dead cows and they built fake dead cows. And I actually stippled those cows for hours with the little fibers of hair and stuff. Yeah. So I guess it was technically on the makeup department of that show too. I just never was paid for it.
And another thing, like you worked with another super horror icon, the Mistress of the Dark, Elvira, and you actually play her son. So how was that like to play Elvira's son? Like,
oh my god. Well, that was another, like, Elvira had been a a favorite of my dad's and
Yeah.
mine as a kid. And I mean, who doesn't love Elvira? And it was just that I'd done this movie called All About Evil. That's an indie kind of black comedy, satire, horror mashup. And I did that right after finishing, like a week after finishing Terminator. And it was Natasha Lyonne, Mink Stoll, like all these great kind of cult people, and directed by Peaches Christ, the drag queen, Joshua Grinnell, who I think is a genius. And so I met Cassandra Elvira on that because she played my mom in that movie out of Elvira drag, like she played it as herself. And so then we got along really well on that in San Francisco. And it was like a few months later, I think, she just emailed me and said, kind of jokingly, like, hey, you've played my son once. We've got this idea, this bit we want to do in the new show. Do you want to be Elric, my son? And I mean, of course, like, yes, is the answer. It was an honor and a thrill. And it was just one day of filming in somewhere random in LA, like a warehouse or something. And yeah, it was, that's another proud moment.
Nice. And I mean, you talked about it earlier. I mean, it has mixed reviews and stuff, but what are your thoughts on the Nightmare on Elm Street remake?
Well, I'll say this. I had a great time making it. I really did.
Okay.
I loved the cast. Rooney Mara and Kyle Gallner and I really kind of became a little trio of, there was a lot of love there, but everybody was great. And, you know, I think, look, remakes are tough, period. I just think, you know, and I remember when the first conversation I had with the producers of that movie, like before we got off to shoot it, was I was like, I just want to make sure, like, you guys, I know you do all these horror remakes, but you realize, like, this is the hallowed ground. Like, if you're going to remake Nightmare on Elm Street, I hope you're aware that this is, like, tough. And it was. I think when you have a movie of that budget and of that size, you have to keep a lot of people pleased. And so oftentimes, this is why I think indie horror is quite often the best, because you have more of an auteurist approach. You've got one person kind of really making decisions and making bold choices, and they have a vision, and that's what they're going to see to completion. When you can do that with a smaller amount of money, but when you've got like $40 million that you need to make back and then some, you kind of have to tread a little more lightly, I think. And so I'm not going to sit here and criticize the powers that be, but I think we can all, as horror aficionados, agree, yeah. So that's what I'll say. I think it's a challenge to remake Nightmare on Elm Street. Period. Yeah.
Okay. And I talked about the film earlier. The Kaboom.
Yeah.
Like it's a very sexual film, and how was it? How was it shooting, like those kind of sex scenes? Was it comfortable? And
I'll say this. First of all, the funny part, that movie premiered in Cannes, and it's a Palais, which is like thousands of seats theater, and my mom came to Cannes to see the premiere, and I had not seen the movie. None of us had. Greg hadn't shown it to us yet, and I just, like, my mom knew nothing about the movie, and as we were going in, I was like, Mom, I just want you to know, the first shot is like me from the front, fully naked, and I have sex with everybody in this movie, so enjoy. And it was really, that was uncomfortable. That was the most uncomfortable, with Mom behind me. But the actual shooting of it was pretty great. Greg, at least on that film, and I think on most of his stuff, he storyboards like everything within an inch of itself, and it doesn't alter. So we knew every sex scene, every nude scene, every whatever. We knew going in how it was going to be shot, what was going to be shown, what it was going to look like, how intense we were going to have to be, etc. So kind of once you approved that within yourself, there were never any surprises, and Greg's very respectful, and I think because we were all so young, and it was also just kind of funny, like it was just like Juno Temple was dating a friend of mine at the time. And it was so funny because she didn't have a car here in LA. So we would do these night shoots of these like sex scenes all night. And then I'd drive her home to my friend at their house and be like, it's like, I don't know. It was just, there was a lot of humor to it. But I will say also, I was just such a Greg fan, and I was just so determined to work for him in some capacity that it was like a mixture of laughing at the sex stuff and being really stressed the rest of the time, because I really wanted to do a good job for him. I really wanted to, and I was the lead in the movie. So it's like, I want to make sure he's happy. And when you really want to please a director like that, you at least I do, I kind of just obsess in that, and which isn't good. But yeah, overall that was a really fun time too.
Oh.
Had a lot of fun times. I've been very lucky.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you like doing during your free time when you're not, acting or doing music?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not very good at sitting still. I can sit still to watch, good films and stuff like that. But I really am a doer. I like kind of always being busy. And I am usually doing some sort of creative something. Like it's just like, because a lot of what I do, I don't put out, and it's not for that purpose. It's just kind of like, I don't know how to like function and not be sort of tinkering with something. But yeah, I don't know. Lots of play with the dog when I'm really not doing anything. The dog changes everything.
And being a big horror fan, what are some horror movies you really love to watch?
Oh my God. Old, new, what are we talking?
Oh man. Yeah, just any in general.
Boy. I just 2 days ago had to make a list. I made a giant list of horror movies that a friend of mine who's seen like everything. I was trying to think of stuff she might not have seen. So it was actually of recent times, I really like The Babadook. I think it's really, I just did the Babadook noise and wasn't even trying to. That's dumb. But I thought that movie was really like about a lot, and is kind of that great sweet spot where, human drama and genuinely kind of disturbing thought and feeling mixes with something that is jumpy and works and functions. But I mean, I love Carrie. I love The Shining. I love the kind of more obscure stuff too. I did a whole thing on YouTube years ago. It was like, I think I listed like 100 horror movies to watch for Halloween or something. So yeah, I don't know. I like the psychological stuff. I like early Polanski. I like it's always weird when someone asks you, then you can't think of anything.
Yeah.
It's a problem. Yeah, that's a few, I guess. The list is very long.
And what about like who's currently on your playlist? Like, who are you listening to currently?
Right now, I am listening to nonstop nothing but the band Underworld, because actually my guitarist on Poolside got me into them. So right now I'm listening to them. But my favorites at the moment, I love Boy Harsher. Do you know them?
No.
They're super dark and gothy and
oh really?
Yeah, like a lot of their stuff sounds like it could be a soundtrack to, if like Gaspar Noé did a horror movie, or well, all his stuff is a horror movie, let's be honest. But yeah, who else? I can literally look at my phone and tell you. I loved John Carpenter's last album, Lost Leaves 3. I thought that was great. Listening to Love and Rockets, Susie and the Banshees. Oh, Rob Zombie's new album.
Nice.
This French girl, Hante, I don't know if that's how you say it. She's great. Hante. Sisters of Mercy. Cosmic Love Child is this band I just found, and there's like nothing about this band online, so he's amazing. Cosmic Love Child. The Iron Curtain is another good band. That's what I'm listening to.
I have to check some of these bands out. Like there's a few I didn't hear of. I definitely have to check.
I get a feeling
I'm
you
gonna
might
listen to them.
dig Iron Curtain.
All
You should
right.
check out Iron Curtain.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Gives me something to listen to later on
Yeah,
now.
nice and moody
Right.
stuff.
And like you have two films that are coming out or out. Like can you tell me anything about them? The Blue Call, I think it's one of them.
Oh my God, I don't even like know. That was just friends of mine. I came in for a
Oh,
day. I did this thing. I haven't seen it. I don't know much about it. We actually did that a long time ago, and it
oh wow.
just kind of, as happens with indies, it kind of
Yeah.
took a minute to do its thing. But I don't know too much about that movie. The other one, Body Brokers, is that
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Body Burgers is the other one.
that's a movie I really like. I'm only in kind of one big scene in it. And I'd kind of stepped back from acting for a little while just to
Hmm.
kind of reassess. And when you've been doing the same thing like nonstop since like little itty bitty childhood, I think
Yeah.
it's kind of crucial to have a moment where you go like, wait a minute, let me just like really figure this out. Um, and that was kind of the first movie that I read it and I was like, this is important. And you know, it's the director John Swab wrote it, and he's a really good writer and director. And it's about this kind of crazy uh, money scheme that goes on in the detox rehab world. And of course, it's really sad because Michael K. Williams was the lead in the movie with Jack Kilmer, and he just passed away, and
Yeah.
which was a real shock. What a wonderful, wonderful, kind and great man and actor. So I'm now very proud to be in this movie with him. It's kind of like the meaning of that movie has blown up, but it's great in general. It's a really great cast, and yeah, I just went to Tulsa, Oklahoma for the first time and shot it, and yeah, it's a good one though. It's out. I like that movie. It's smart.
Okay.
Yeah, you should check it out if you haven't
Oh,
seen it.
definitely will
It's not
now.
horror, but
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Okay. Okay. And is there anything else coming out? Like anything you want to push or plug? I mean, I know your album and stuff, and
Album's out, show's coming out, but I can't announce that. They have to, but keep your eyes open. And I got another movie that I wrote and will direct that we are casting right now and have not announced yet. Once we're kind of in that, but it is genre. It's mind bender disturbing. That's all I'll say for now.
okay.
But
Okay.
it's definitely been a bit of a creative breakthrough for me. So I'm really, I think it's like one of those things. It's one of the few things where I can look at it and be like, yeah, I think that's good. Because normally with my stuff, I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. But with this, objectively speaking, I think it's gonna be good. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. And where can fans find you at? Like, with your pages?
I'm on Instagram. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, and I am on Twitter. I just never really use it.
Okay.
Instagram is definitely I just like the visual stuff. So I'm Thomas.Dekker on Instagram. And yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking time out and doing this. This has been so much fun, just asking you about all your horror movies you've done and your music, and I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, and it's really cool to actually talk to you about all this stuff. So thank you.
Amen. Anytime. Thank you. You ask great questions.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
keep on rocking in the free world.
Definitely. That's a great song.
All right, buddy. I'll see you next time.
All right. Have a good one, bud.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.